Welcome back to Memeobi's Galaxy, the only Star Wars podcast that dives deeper than the pit of Carkoon. I am your host, Memeobi, and today's episode is a special one. Not only are we diving into the entire second season of Andor, we also have a guest. Joining us today is Tony, a longtime listener and a true fan of the show, who actually reached out to us to come on the show, and we said absolutely. We will touch on all the things of Season 2, what we liked, what we didn't like, and what we think they could have done better. So grab your calf, sit back, and let's debrief the rebellion. Memeobi's Galaxy starts now. I was trying to think back on how we first started talking, but we have too many messages to scroll back that far. So with us today, we have Tony. How are we doing today, Tony?
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
We are excited to talk Andor, but first, let's get to know you slightly, right? So talk us through, like, have you always loved Star Wars, like that kind of deal? Like, what is your Star Wars story, quote unquote?
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint when it started. I don't remember the first time ever seeing it. It was just always around. I don't know if it was either the original trilogy that I saw first or the prequels. I know that the prequels were the first thing I really started to consume as like a real fan, like watching again and again and again, and eventually saw all the movies over the years. And I have to admit, I have been a kind of a closeted fan. Where I'm starting to just, let my nerddom come out a little bit. So
okay, perfect. Ethan, are you doing okay today? I haven't talked to you at all.
I mean, I love when we ask that question because I feel like there's such a different experience with watching Star Wars in theater, especially the way that like George Lucas made his movies. It's like when Star Wars starts, it's boom, loud in your face, in the screen, and all big like that. And it is a different experience. So we like to ask that question for sure.
And it is interesting to see just everyone's how they got into Star Wars. There's just so many different. Everyone has a different story. I don't know. It feels like coming from like a Christian side of things. It almost feels like everyone has like their testimony or whatever.
Sure.
Like in my mind, everyone has their Star Wars testimony on like when they were awakened to like the Force and like the whole universe, because everyone's is so unique. Like I don't know. I really enjoy just hearing everybody's Star Wars story.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we can just jump right in and get to the meat and potatoes of the episode.
Let's do it, the meat and potatoes.
Andor Season 2. So the people don't know, but we enjoyed it. But I know that you definitely have a different take than I did, because every episode we came out with, you always would message me and have something to say about either the podcast or the episodes as a whole. So how do you feel about the overall season? Because it is, honestly, here's my take. It's kind of hard to rank because each of the three, like the 4 sets of 3, were very different. Mm-hmm. It's hard to rank as a whole because like I love the ending. I thought the ending was sweet, but there were moments that were like, it's hard. It's a big season to rank. But what do you think, Tony? What are your thoughts?
Overall, I think it's a very good show. So I really view it, I think, unbiased. However, there's a lot of pros and cons. I think that it's visually, I think the best Star Wars show that Disney has put out yet. I think pretty much everyone can agree on that. And style-wise, I also love it too. And part of that, I think is the fact that they spent almost $500 million on it shows. It just shows, you can tell there's a big difference between the other shows. I understand they can't spend that kind of money on every project, but I think something that looks that good should always be the goal. So acting was great. Love the casting, everything about it. A+ on all that stuff. I think the obvious thing that everyone says is, things kind of drag sometimes. And I think that for me, that makes it feel less Star Warsy because so much of George Lucas's style was fast paced, like just
That's true.
The stories moved along. And that's probably why a lot of the dialogue was a little dull, was because in order to move so quickly, you just had to get to the point with your dialogue. Whereas, this is very drawn out. So I think that's obviously my first, obvious issue with it, but that I can go way more in depth into all of that. But I feel like the first 3 episodes felt more like season 1. And I feel like you almost could take the first 3 episodes completely out of season 2 and it really wouldn't have affected the story all that much. I feel like you would still have the general idea of the story. without
True.
feeling like you really missed a whole lot,
No, I would agree with that because, right, the first three, all that really happens, like you didn't have to force them to be apart in like the first episode, right? Like Andor and Bix didn't have to be separated. That was just what they chose for the story. I think it almost felt like one, they were trying to do the whole thing, each set of three was like 1 year apart, and that kind of puts it back at almost the same timeline as season one. And it's almost like I don't know what to say, like almost like a starting point, right? Like from season one to season two.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, hey, where are we now?
Did you watch them as they released, like 3 episodes at a time? Is that how you watched it or no?
every time except for once.
Okay,
gotcha.
I would almost always try to watch them the night they were released, but it's 9 o'clock on the
pretty
East Coast, so
Yeah.
it can get a
They had the
little
same
late
problem.
sometimes. But I think I watched all 3 in a row except for one time I watched 2 and 1. I think that was the second batch.
I definitely agree that's the best way to watch it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, do you think that? Do you think that it would be fine to watch it differently, or do you think that is the best way to watch it? Because that's what we've said, and that's what I believe. But
I think yes, I think it's the best way, and I think it was very on purpose why they put them out that way. Because I mean, consider the first 3 episodes. Do you know how many people you'd probably lose if you put the first episode out by itself? There was
I think it's happened.
Yeah.
It almost felt like they should have just released 4 like hour and 45-minute episodes,
Right.
like little movies, because that's what it is. It's pretty much 4 movies.
Right. I don't want to make it sound like I don't like the show, because I do. I think the main plot points are amazing. I think it tells a great story that I think everyone's interested in. I just, again, think there's a lot of filler where I think you could take both seasons, what's that, 24 episodes, right?
Yeah.
And somebody could edit it down to a single season of 8 episodes. I think it would be an amazing season of Star Wars. I mean, maybe it could be longer than that, but I just think you've got enough action and good parts and just good writing and acting and everything that, if you just condensed it down to 8, 50-minute, 1-hour episodes, I think you would have a great season there.
I need to rewatch season 1 to really comment on that. But I do agree with you, the first 3 episodes, because I was saying this in the last episode we did, talking about the final 3, about how I wish like K2SO was there more, and it would have worked if they would have just got rid of the first 3 episodes pretty much, because if you do review them as like 4 movies, the first one, that's a pretty sucky movie.
Yeah.
Nothing's really happening in that movie.
Yeah.
He does some stuff, and we see Yavin, like it's cool. We see that there's struggles and it's not coordinated, but
right.
I do agree with you that the first 3, because they did lose people even with releasing them. I know a lot of our friends. I was just talking to one of our friends. He's like, yeah, it just doesn't feel Star Wars. I couldn't get past the 3rd episode.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a bummer.
I personally think with the first 3, the way that they, because we were talking about it in our first podcast on it, how it felt like you were watching 3 different things at once, and they're trying to tell 3 different stories.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually feel like that was a good thing for the show, because sure, in the first few, as you're watching it, it might be kind of hard to kind of understand what's going on. And it's like, what is happening here? And it's kind of weird to watch. But after having that at the very beginning, I feel like it makes a good starting point, a good grounding point to watch the rest of the show. Because now you understand these 3 different stories and where they're coming from.
Right.
So that's how I felt with it. But
I don't have a problem with jumping around, because George did that a lot. And I definitely, because it keeps
I was going to mention that.
moving for sure. I know I've mentioned this to you before in our messages, that I don't, and maybe I missed it, if someone has the answer to this, but I don't think they explain the reason for stealing the TIE fighter. They don't really explain much about the rebels. I understand what they're trying to show is that, it was the beginning of the rebels on Yavin, and they were unorganized, but there wasn't really, I would have loved to see General, is it Draven? Like, we don't, he just shows up. We don't
He does just
see
show up.
any of, that was probably the thing that I was hoping to get more from the show as a whole when I heard what was going to be about the forming of, I would have loved to have seen more of the actual forming of the rebels, more than just and that's something I think you miss maybe with some of the time jumps. There's pros and cons of it, but I wish they could have jumped around and it shown maybe more of the, what was they didn't really show a lot of Bail Organa a lot really until, partway through season 2. And obviously they're doing a lot, but how did Luthen get in touch with Mon Mothma and Organa and General Draven and all the others. Like, how did they connect? That's got to be an interesting story to tell too. Like, all these people who secretly have this ambition to create this rebellion, but they don't show how they meet. Like that's
I do think you make a good point with the TIE fighter scene there.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I remember in our first episode when we were talking about it, even that girl, I don't remember her name or anything, the one that was helping Andor get to the TIE fighter there. We talked about her like, oh man, she's dead. We almost as in a way we're expecting to see more from her the way that they made that scene. I think you're right, honestly, that it was just why did he do that? This seemed like a really big deal for that girl to have to help him out there, but we didn't see anything else from her.
Yeah, I think I agree. It almost feels like I wish they would have put time jumps in the set of 3 episodes. Like instead of just being like a week, it would be like a month or like even like even like a month within those 3 episodes. I feel like we could have gotten so much more instead of just like confining it to like one day basically.
I do think the TIE fighter scene though was a really good one to showcase like Andor's skill. He started off not knowing the ship at all, but really quickly being able to figure out how to use the ship, and that I feel like that's a really good example of how Cassian Andor is as a character,
Definitely.
So I liked that they were able to add that in with the TIE fighter scene.
I love the action of it and the aesthetics of it. It's I mean, when you see that in the previews for it, it definitely gets you interested. I just wish it had just more connection to the story, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely have like recency bias where it's like the last episode I loved how it tied together. I loved like the flashback. I like the whole thing. But like
I think we all do kind of
thinking back, I'm like, yeah, compared to the last 3 to the first 3, the first 3 do kind of suck. Just like there's not as much action, it's not as cool. Like it is boring.
Yeah, I don't want to harp on it too much. We all know how it was,
No, yeah, seriously, I think you're making a really strong case, but
that is the thing. It's like when I was talking to Ethan about this the other day, like when I think about what I want for Star Wars, I want so many things, but I don't want it for the community. Like I'm fine with them going grocery shopping. Like I would love to see Obi-Wan just go shopping for a house in Tatooine. I would love that. I'd be like, oh, it's awesome. But I worry about the general audience reaction with like the first 3 episodes because it was a little more heavy with like some of those scenes with Bix and like it was kind of intense. But it's like,
I don't know if you listened to our episode before Andor came out when we were talking about what to be excited for.
Oh, yeah.
But that's where you can kind of see the difference with him and I, where I feel like he does a really good job at like figuring out what the audience is going to enjoy and like, and I'm just like an excited Star Wars fan where it's like, if threw back in any character, I wouldn't care about their character arcs, whatever. I was like, it'd just be cool that they added that back into Star Wars, but so that's for someone like me, like I can definitely just have a recency bias to the show because I just enjoy it. It was really fun to watch in the moment. And if they add something in, I'm not going to be the person that'll look back into what the book really said about why that moment should have happened or what did it say here in the comics or does that really tie in well with the last episode that it's coming from, So, I mean, all Star Wars fans kind of have a different opinion and approach that they take it. What would you say is kind of like your approach to that, though?
Yeah, no, well, first of all, I always give every show, no matter what I've heard about it upcoming, like a complete like open mind going into it.
Yeah.
No matter what. And sometimes I really have to like think about stuff after I watch it. Sometimes I have to watch it a second time to really like form an opinion. I have to admit, I do go on YouTube and watch other people, and because sometimes they point out things that I didn't like. I might not understand how I feel after I watch something. I don't know if that makes any sense. I might watch something, I go, something doesn't feel right, but I don't know what it is I don't like about it. And then I'll hear someone say, oh, that makes sense. That's why I don't like it, or something like that. But no, I'm definitely, I don't know how to explain it. I'm always happy that whenever they're coming out with anything, a lot of times it's something that I might think, well, that's not really what I was looking for, but I'll watch it anyway. I'm happy to, I'm happy to see it. And sometimes I'm pleasantly surprised by it. I think when Rogue One came out, I wasn't like particular pumped about it because it wasn't. I was confused by the idea of having it not be part of like the main Star Wars story.
Yeah, we talked about that too.
That was the first one, right? And I remember watching it and being completely blown away by it. I think I was like, I think I actually cried at the end. I think every time I watch it, I get emotional. It's just, and it's amazing how in one movie they made you care about people so much. And I think Tony Gilroy, you have to give him credit for that. I was, and I think he did do that to an extent in the show too. Real quick, something that you said, Lynn, maybe 2 podcasts ago, you said something about something being good Star Wars or bad Star Wars, or maybe you just said good Star Wars. And when I heard you say that, I was like, interesting. And it made me realize how I feel about Andor. I think it's a great show. I just don't necessarily feel like it's great Star Wars, because there's definitely some times where I almost forget I'm watching Star Wars, and some people might like that because it's different and it's fresh. Like there was definitely in the first 3 episodes, I hate to keep harping on the first 2 episodes, because honestly, after that, the drama and the tension was great. I was definitely hooked. But there were times when you might go 30, 40 minutes and you don't see anything that looks like Star Wars, and all of a sudden you see it like a stormtrooper, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But
I do agree with that. I do. It definitely, I think they're trying to meld like the 2 genres of like prequels and like original really well, which I'm like set design, I think killed it, because a lot of their like technology did look very 70s, 80s, like how George might have made it in the 80s or in like the 70s, definitely. Like some of their TVs and stuff, and like trying to connect it with some, like after the episodes come out and then I have my episode, I watch a YouTube series. It's called Screen Crush.
Yes.
And they do such good detailed things I would never know. Like, hey, this is a base from this one book, or this is from this teen novel. And from that side of things, whoever's in charge of like actually making sure there's tons of cool references is killing it.
Right.
Because Andor, like, there's so many references to things I'd never even...
All the Easter eggs. And
so
stuff.
many Easter eggs.
Yeah.
So whoever's doing that side of it is really cool. But like, my whole thing is I worry about the general public, because most people, like one of your friends said, it's not Star Wars because there's no lightsabers.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought of
So
that.
he called me out, actually.
Okay, yeah.
We totally forgot about the lightsaber in Rogue One. How did we forget that even happened?
I remember you said
one of the greatest hallway scenes of all time, and we just forgot, because it's at the end. And like I
think we had such Andor mindset, you know, that and we thought of that into Rogue One that we completely forgot about one of the best lightsaber scenes.
True. I thought about it up to when he dies, and I forgot the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
My favorite part about that scene is it's so nicely placed, because, they just die a heroic death. So in when that scene comes up, I'm like shaken, and then that happens, and then you end being like, oh, that was sick. It kind of like wipes away the sadness, because it's like so cool to watch, and it feels, everything about that scene is so, it looks perfect. It looks just like that first scene in episode 4. It's like it just fits so nicely, and it feels complete, and I love that. And I did appreciate how Andor ended, in that, if you've seen Rogue One, the first mission goes. I love when they connect and the continuity is spot on. I love when that happens.
Right.
We need to go back and watch Rogue One now, because I haven't watched it since Andor season 2, and like everybody's saying like it hits different.
I noticed on Disney Plus yesterday it said the top 2 things played were Andor and Rogue One. I was like, I need to do that as well. But I kind of, even though it's going to be a little bit painful, I want to go back and watch season 1 and 2 again, and then watch Rogue One. But
it's a lot of content.
Yeah, it is.
Well, so first of all, on that note, that's embarrassing. Thanks for calling us out on that. to know about that lightsaber.
I was eating breakfast, and I was like, "What are they talking about?"
That's so funny. I was distraught when you told me that. I was like, wow. How did we do that? But with Andor, we were right about that one. You know what?
Right.
What is your thought about that idea that Star Wars is lightsabers and makes of a lightsaber fight?
I think until Rogue One, that was absolutely the case. And even in the Han Solo movie, there aren't any lightsabers, I don't think.
No.
And I'm okay with that. I think that movie gets too much hate, actually. I actually kind of like it.
I love Solo.
I'm not... As long as... This actually brings me to one other point. I'm okay with it not having lightsabers and the Force in it, or that being like the main theme. I would always like there to be somehow involved, and they did in season 2. Organa did say, "May the Force be with you."
Well, also, what do you think of the Force healing gal?
I loved that. I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I like the idea of someone who can like tap into the Force a little bit without just being a straight up Jedi. I am okay with that, because there's, I think they've maybe even in Clone Wars have talked about people who were, Force sensitive, but like maybe just like aren't cut out to be like a full blown Jedi. So there's a place for people to still use those, skills and talents.
For sure.
I like
so thinking about the season as a whole, what are some things you think would make it better? Like what could they have changed like retrospectively to make like this, like what would make it more Star Warsy, right? Because you
Right.
forgot that it was Star Wars when you're watching it. So like what would have made it more Star Wars?
So kind of what I was just starting to tap into was like,
yeah.
we all know obviously at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Bail Organa is very much, involved with the Jedi. He knows where Yoda is, and obviously Leia is living with them. And I know clearly it's a secret, but I wish there could have been a way to maybe incorporate a little bit of like his relationship with Yoda and Obi-Wan somehow. Not saying they have to be in it, but just maybe in conversation with, those meetings with the higher ups where they say like, I can discuss it with, maybe he has got like a code name for them or something. Somebody to just make it have a little bit connection to those older stories and have that Force Star Warsy feel. I think they could have easily just added that in writing and not even had to worry about like new casting or characters or anything like that. Just incorporate it into the dialogue.
Yeah,
that
I was
alone,
happy
I think,
when we saw Bail in there. That was something we guessed before. I thought we were going to see Leia. That's something I predicted before the show, but like we would see Leia as well, and maybe that would bring a little bit more opportunity for Bail to be in there. But yeah, I felt that way with Bail. I think we could have seen more than it. Felt like we saw him pretty late too,
especially since we have have you seen the deleted scenes of Episode 3 with Mon Mothma and Bail Organa? Like they approach Padme about like pretty much joining the rebellion, and because that's the actress, I forget her name, the actress that played Mon Mothma in this was in deleted scenes that never got aired in Episode 3, and it's like them being friends. So it's like if you know the deleted scenes, which aren't canon necessarily, like that Mon Mothma and Bail have like a relationship of some sort, like they're friends. But yeah, I think honestly it would be better if like, I don't know, there's all these like other senators and stuff we kind of get touched on like in Episode 1 and like this stuff. Like I feel like if Bail was more involved and like Bail and Mon Mothma like working together, because at the end we get like, they're like, oh, we hate Luthen, he's such a thorn in our side. Like, but what did he do? Like, we don't even it all happened off screen, and they even then, like you said, like sometimes you just need to spell it out.
I feel like we missed a lot of juicy stuff.
Really. Yep. And I think that's because they got stuck to like these happen within like a week of each other, like a couple days. Right. These like set of 3 episodes, so we couldn't like explore that because like people just we want more. What's his name? What's the rebel? Forrest Whitaker.
Oh, Saw Gerrera.
Saw Gerrera.
Oh yeah.
He's such. I don't know. His goofy voice was weird at first when we first saw him, but like he kills it. He's such a good actor and such a cool character.
Yeah.
Everybody in this was great. Did you know that the actress that played Clea, this was her first ever role?
Yeah.
Like professional role.
I was
Really?
gonna send that. I was gonna send that to you, Ethan. But yeah, she just fresh out of like acting school, and this is what she did.
Yeah,
That's
they said
amazing.
I think in season 1 she didn't really have a lot of parts. So we're kind of testing her out, and everything she did they loved, and so he wrote her in more in season 2, and she was excellent.
Wow, good for her.
Amazing.
She made her break quick.
She was like one of the beginning because she's in the last 3 really like a lot, so she's definitely front of mind. No, she killed it. Luthen.
Wow, yeah, I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Isn't that cool?
And Genevieve O'Reilly is her name, by the way. That's
okay,
one paid.
Yep.
Mon Mothma.
Jenny, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Mon.
I've been so impressed with Diego Luna. I think he's just done such a great job.
Excellent.
And
I love him so much.
He's been in like the production side of it a lot too, actually. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, he apparently I was reading this thing, that's how he got into it in the first place. Like even before they made Andor, when he was in Rogue One. So I mean everyone kind of has an insight somehow, it looks like, we were just talking about with Ross Beedman, who's like, some area of nepotism a little bit to get in with the Star Wars community.
Oh, true.
That's funny.
But yeah, Diego Luna, he did an amazing job. I was so impressed with him.
He was.
And Kyle Soller, the one who played Cyril.
Yes.
Cyril Karn. I said that in our last podcast. He was probably one of my favorite characters. Besides like Andor, I really liked Cyril. He did a good job.
I always have to respect when people really make you not like them. It's just they just do a great job.
Yep.
Oh, it's
for sure.
I'd hate that role. I don't want to be a guy that everyone hates. But like, because like, I don't know. But like, yeah, if they do it well, it's like as long as you don't take it too far where you end up hating the actor, which happens a lot. But I think he played it off well. He just played like a really annoying character, but it worked. It really did. Because I was at first I thought he was going to be like all for like more into like the Empire, but like I don't know, he wasn't at the end. Like he didn't really switch sides by any means, but he definitely
started to see the light a little bit. Yeah, I was just gonna say,
yeah.
I think that was one of the best payoffs of the show. Was this guy who was so intensely like into it, was like just briefly right before he died, like started to see the Empire a little bit for what it was, and felt betrayed. You could tell. I loved his intense scenes. I think he did really well. I think those last, or not the last three, but what was it, 7, 8, 9?
Yeah,
for him were by far his best episodes for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think he definitely had like a full circle moment, like because like going to the end. Obviously, if you're listening right now and you haven't watched, there's going to be spoilers. So when he dies, I thought it was I don't know, it was a good ending for him. Like I didn't think. I'm glad he needed to die. Like
that scene was like, in my opinion, felt one of the most intense too. It was insane to see him all of a sudden go off on Cassian. That was crazy.
Who are you?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the ending of how Deidre ended up? Like, it's a weird. We've never seen that with a bad guy in Star Wars.
Yeah, where she almost gets like turned on by the Empire themselves, and I think it just goes to show how much they're trying to hide the Death Star, right? Like it's such a secret; they can't have anyone who knows about it that could potentially leak it, right?
Yeah, it felt right for me for like how Krennic, the way he's running the Empire and the way that the Empire is. It felt like that's what they would do. Something I was talking about in one of our last podcast episodes is, I loved how the Empire felt. That's one of the things that I was saying. Mm-hmm. It felt very George Lucas, the way that they showed the Empire, and made it feel that like they're in war, this like Nazi feel to it.
Definitely.
So, yeah, I thought it made sense to me.
The one thing I find a little strange is one person who's got a lot of like security clearances, finds out about this thing. Yeah, she's not supposed to know about it, but gets put in prison, we assume forever, but yet there's got to be millions of, or at least thousands of people working on the Death Star, pilots moving stuff back and forth. All those people know about it, just like the person that Cassian Andor is about to go meet. Isn't he like a pilot or something?
Yeah.
So thousands of people who aren't important know about it, but like, so to me, it seems a little odd. Like they would just throw her in prison for this. Like clearly other people know. What are you going to do? Kill or throw every single person who works on the Death Star, like in prison at the end of the workday?
It's probably because she was technically the reason that some of it leaked, right?
Right.
Like she is the reason that the rebels know about it. I do think it's a pretty tragic tale, right? Like she's born in the Empire. She was raised in like Imperial like daycare. Yeah. Like and then now she's in it's a system she's sent tons of people to this prison, and now she's like in it herself. Like she's never got to leave like the Imperial like infrastructure her whole life.
To me, it felt like that was Krennic's way of showing like the importance of the people's roles in the Empire. When he got so on her about, so you're a scavenger now, basically. It's like you're not doing what I told you to.
Great scene.
He would go to that point to punishment. So yeah, I liked it. It did make sense to me. Mm-hmm. So.
The only loose end, I think, is, remember they kept showing, it was mostly in season 1, but they showed it a little bit in season 2, the flashbacks to when Cassian was a kid. True. And he had a sister. They never really show what happened to her sister.
Yeah,
and there was that theory that Deidre was somehow his like long lost sister.
There was that. But I thought, so I don't know if...
so is that just the conclusion to it then? Is with what his mom said, we're just going to assume she's dead?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what I assume.
I think I missed that then.
I think she said that, no, everyone got wiped out, I believe is what she said at one point. In season 1, I may be mistaken, but that's what I remember.
I remember that, but I really thought we were onto something when we thought Clea was going to be his sister.
Oh yeah.
For a hot second when she showed up, I'm like, wait, is that the same girl? Because like they're massacring someone. They're there. There was some sort of accident or something that happened on their planet. Oh, I thought it was going to be her.
I agree though. That's a loose end, and I don't really know how you could tie it up now if they were to do something later.
We'll get a whole trilogy of novels about her.
Yeah. Well, so back on the question you asked earlier to him, you said you wish you could have had some more Bale.
Yeah.
What else is something you wish you could have seen more of? Like, for the main thing I would say, I think you heard us say it, is K2SO. I wish we could have seen more of him.
Oh yeah, I definitely wish I had more of him. I love was it Alan Tudyk or
Alan
the guy-
Tudyk, yeah.
Yeah, the guy that plays his voice. I love the character. He's kind of like Chewbacca in a way where like he's the muscle that gets everything done. Like nothing gets done without those guys, really.
Yeah.
But I definitely wish we could have had more time in the last year or so when he was around for sure. I think there's definitely a lot of pros and cons to having the 1 year time jump between each set of episodes where even like relationship wise, like Willem, is that his name? Willem had like a girl, one of them, and then all of a sudden, like you didn't get to see anything happen with that relationship. So sometimes when you just all of a sudden jump, it makes it hard to follow relationships and invest in them.
Hard to keep up with like every single character with big time jumps like that.
Yeah. Whereas if you
100%.
didn't worry about like sticking to a certain structure, you could do time jumps where it made sense. So I mean. Yeah, I think showing a little bit more of the key figures of the rebellion, how they teamed up, how they got connected, how they were able to secretly communicate to decide this is what we're going to do would have been nice. I mean, that, and then, maybe just being able to somehow tie in a little bit more of the Force stuff with Bale, I think honestly would have just, I mean, like I said, I don't really have a whole lot of qualms with it other than just like, that it was a little slow. Wish I had a little bit more action, like in season 1 when Luthen flies away with his ship and the like laser things come out of his ship and he scene. I remember when that happened, I felt like I was constantly waiting for stuff like that. It was like waiting through like long drawn out episodes for stuff like that, and I just wanted more of that. And I was hoping that season 2 would be more like that, although it was better, and the tension and the drama that was built throughout the season was excellent. It definitely had me hooked. So
at least like a little bit more, like a few more skirmishes here and there. Like obviously, I don't think we can have any large scale because they hadn't done
didn't
so much
exist.
in the rebellion. It didn't exist. So I think some more skirmishes or something like that.
Yeah,
would have been neat.
Your point on the time jumps, it really had to make it, it sparked your imagination for what could have happened in between. Like I remember when, I think it was before, it's hard to remember back when the episodes released. I think it was right before the second release for season 2, that we kind of saw Cassian and Bix, shopping and talking about their trauma from war and everything like that. She's like, no, we're just getting groceries, like this is not a mission, and it made you have to think like, what were they going through in between, because we didn't get to see any of it. When the show started, I was actually confused at first. I was like, what are they talking about? And then he was just like, dude, it's been a year later. You have to think of this,
Right.
In between those years, you just had to imagine what could have happened or what they were going through. Like, what kind of war were they dealing with? What was happening with the Empire? How much was being built during Gorman? Stuff like that.
Yeah, like instead of showing just the, like, after like a big thing happened, why don't just show that big thing? Like Bix is having trouble. She's having these nightmares because they had to kill a guy. Okay, well we should have just started a day before now and just showing that. Like it's great. I definitely I'm all here for some drama and some dialogue, but like just not just that. Like the rebels, it's on Yavin, it's like, oh, they're disconnected, but like, okay, they're just playing rock paper scissors in the woods, and like it's like I get what they're going for, but it's like, is there not anything cooler we could be watching that happened during the rise of the rebellion?
Yeah, for me, I think something I would have liked to see more probably. I mean, we saw a lot of him in season 1, so I was okay with not seeing too much in season 2. But of B, the droid.
Oh yeah, he was great.
B. Yeah,
he was great. I'm glad they wrapped him up a little bit, and then he's doing okay. Like I'm glad they did show that, but it did feel people love that droid. Like it's very like a beloved droid from season 1. So I thought it was interesting. It makes sense. He's definitely not a rebellion droid, right? Like he can't really be in the rebellion.
He's too soft.
Not that good. He's too soft.
Yeah.
He definitely needs to just be hanging out with kids and stuff like he is on the wheat.
And he's
planet.
old. He needs to charge.
He's like a dog, He's like an old dog. He just can't do much anymore.
Yeah, he totally. Yeah.
So I get why they didn't put him in it, but like I don't know. He could just be on the ship and like not being a problem, but just like a comedic background. I don't know.
That's what this might be a hot take. I think the best thing Disney has done with Star Wars is the droids that they've made have been all spot on. BB-8, I think, is like the perfect, like, parallel to
Yeah.
R2D2. K2 is awesome, and then even that little cone droid in I think
Yeah.
the eighth
B
movie I think is
B
hilarious.
BD1, I think.
Oh, yeah, BD1.
Oh yeah, no, and then the one with Cal Kestis too is there's something
Yeah.
they've really captured this thing about these mechanical things that make they've captured the sound, and there's a way where it just makes you feel like it's it's your partner, like it's
Yeah,
living somehow. Um,
it's like a Star Wars pet in a way.
yeah,
And especially with like K2SO and then like B, they don't feel as much like marketing tactics, like to sell toys, because they aren't necessarily
Good
drawn
point.
towards
Yeah.
children. Like BB-8 kind of is in a way. Like they did make him pretty cute, which I'm not against, but they definitely have made a lot of content around
For sure.
BB-8. But when they're bigger, it's like, okay, that's not going to be. It doesn't feel as much like a marketing scheme.
yeah,
'Cause
you're not gonna be taking
that-
a K2SO home.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Yeah. Dude, I saw a K2SO in like an antique store next to like all these like dolls, like this like a bunch of grandma dolls, and then like just K2SO was just standing there like, this is funny.
That is funny.
A life-size like stuffed animal version of K2SO would be pretty awesome.
I'm
Just
just trying to
huge
picture
arms
the
and legs.
stuff.
7 foot tall, laying on your bed. Like,
I definitely have some strong opinions about other shows and Star Wars content, but
Yeah,
I always try to be fair, but because I've done some writing,
Yeah.
some script writing for different things, I always try to
Yeah.
be like super faithful to lore and also like what I think George would do and like how the pacing would be, what's important in the story, what are the key aspects you know, of the story that you're trying to tell, and how do you like transition from each of those main events, and also use like as little filler as possible, but connect it with things that are meaningful. So whenever I'm watching something, I'm always trying to use that sort of like lens of like how they wrote it and if it could be better or
yeah,
not.
that's great. Yeah. Well, honestly, hearing you say that you've been like a little bit into script writing and stuff, I feel like I'm more starting to understand some of your opinions on
Yeah.
the show because of that. It makes sense for sure. Like even for someone like me, that's something I loved about this show and Andor. I'm an actor, so I really pay attention to seeing stuff in costumes and how they're acting. And this is why I said Andor was one of my favorite shows. They did an outstanding job with costumes and acting and the scenes. It was amazing.
Mhm.
I mainly have done live theater acting. I've just recently gotten into film acting. But yeah, they're doing an amazing job. That I've said this isn't my favorite. Mandalorian is my favorite as far
Right.
as it goes from
Yeah.
the acting and then seeing stuff. But this is like very close second. They've done a really good job on this. So yeah, I understand more what you're saying through that lens. So
The the sets are incredible. You can see where the money went, and I
Yeah.
think you can
Mhm.
even though in The Mandalorian, I think everything looks great. I prefer the like how the story flowed in Mandalorian. Now that everyone has seen how they made those episodes now with like that circular screen,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah, it's
feel
really
a
interesting.
difference. You can feel a
Yeah.
difference between things that were shot like that and things that were shot on like a large scale set. And
oh, for sure.
Like Andor, yeah.
and I just
Yeah.
prefer the feel of the larger world set because it feels more like original Star Wars.
Yeah.
So if they could combine the type of storytelling of like Mandalorian with like the set and the budget of Andor,
Yeah.
and
Maybe
maybe
the expensive show.
and maybe more of like Force stuff that was in like Obi-Wan, like just maybe combine
Yeah.
all the best stuff. But
I hate rating systems, but if you had to give it, both of you and me,
Oh.
a rating out of 10, the overall season 2 of Andor, what would you give it?
Just season 2. I'm gonna say no, like point anything, solid 9 for me.
Ooh, wow.
I'm giving it high.
Full 9.
Yeah, full 9.
I will say that the first 3 hold me back, but
Yeah.
I'm so just happy with everything that I watch. This one, nothing had any issues, so I would give it 7.5, 7.5. 7.5.
on a scale of 1 being Rise of Skywalker and 10 being Revenge of the Sith,
Perfect.
Yep. I would say Andor is I'd say a 7, which is still good. It's definitely
I
good.
agree.
It's worth watching.
It is. It is. It is definitely worth watching.
I'm really torn even giving it a 7. I almost gave it an 8, but
Yeah.
because honestly,
That's
like
where I was at.
small just like I have said, like small changes to dialogue and script and just writing in general with everything else staying constant, would have made it,
Yeah.
an 8 or a 9 in my book. But
I think the internet agrees. It's just the first 3 that really tore everybody apart. I think that's the 3 that made people not like the show as too boring. And I completely agree with everyone. I think there was too much filler. I don't know if it was filler. I think there just wasn't enough. I think the constraints with the time jumps and having it be each set of 3, being like a couple days apart, they weren't able to show us as much as they should. But again, like we said, they could have just shown us more. It was their own choice. It wasn't like it was set in stone that this is how you have to do it.
You see, my only opinion with that is I feel like we're in such a society now that where everything you watch, your movies and social media, like how quickly you get through things, it's like needing to captivate your attention all the time, like 6-second videos being a popular thing, where I feel like that's almost made us change the way we watch movies or shows sometimes, where fillers or something feels like it's dragging a lot more because that's what we're experiencing every day. So yeah, for me, I don't mind the fillers and the dragging. I love to see how they're including it in the story. And if it takes a while to explain that, I'm fine with that taking a while because I want to see what they're saying.
What about you? Any final thoughts on overall?
Overall, great show. Great show. I'll put it this way. It's not the first thing I would show a first-time Star Wars watcher, but
oh no.
Yeah. So that just says it's not like, quintessential Star Wars, but it's a good show overall. Very well done.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. It was a lot of fun. I could see us having you on again if you're ever up for it.
Great.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's good because me and Ethan have very similar perspectives on things. So it is good to have a third different mindset of like Star Wars and how we view things. What that looks like, we don't know, but had a lot of fun chatting with you. Thanks for joining us.
Very nice to meet you. Yeah.
Same here.
And
Thank you guys.
Yep. And if you made it this far in the podcast, thank you so much. That's all I have to say. Just kidding. You can send us a message if you made it this far. If you have any notes on the episode, you can follow me at Obi-Wan Memeobi on Instagram. And leave me a review if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Anyways, thanks for joining us. We had a ton of fun.